Yeah, but that's fine. Yeah, thank you, Prof. Okay, afternoon, everyone. So how do I use this? Is it the same?
So the big
one is forward,
and then the small one.
and then the small one back. Okay. So I think my presentation is, I think, complements what Prof has just highlighted. It also speaks to the idea of socialities and mutual support that emerges in, of course, a very global context in this case, and not necessarily within the community, but it's actually building on from pre-existing mutual support that is within the spaces in which these investments emerge. So I've titled my talk Mobile Money, Crypto, Ponzi Schemes, and the Temporalities and Socialities of Waiting. And this is because of the ways in which waiting is an important part of how these investments operated. So I particularly choose to focus on what is called Triple M. And Triple M is an acronym for Mavrodi Mondial Movement. Some people also refer to it as Mavrodi Mondial Moneyballs. So it's a Ponzi scheme that originated, of course, in Russia. Started in the early 1990s, and then it spread to the former Soviet countries, and then later on to other parts of the world, including in Zimbabwe and Africa more broadly. So I've decided to particularly focus on an important event that relates to this particular Ponzi scheme. That is the collapse of the Ponzi scheme in 2016. And what you can see, this is quite a loaded slide. These were headlines in Zimbabwe from different media sources that reported about the collapse of the Ponzi scheme. But between 2015 and 2016, there were already 10 Ponzi schemes that had collapsed. Many of them were locally based Ponzi schemes, which of course provided a vivid reminder of the precariousness of the Ponzi schemes and also people's vulnerability to lose money. So there are a number of interesting puzzles. I collected part of this data when I was doing my PhD around 2015, 2016. So what was puzzling for me were two issues that, in spite of this kind of evidence that people lose money in these Ponzi schemes, why do they continue investing in these Ponzi schemes? And more particularly in a Russian-based Ponzi scheme, which was a faceless scheme, which didn't have any offices, but just operated online through online metrics and algorithms and platforms, like what colleagues were talking about. So let me quickly talk about this Ponzi scheme. I think I have already highlighted that it's a pyramid Ponzi scheme that was founded by a Russian called Sergei Mavrodi. Started in the 1990s and spread to the post-Soviet countries and then later on globally. In Zimbabwe, it reached the country around 2015 and also established its own local chapter. That is Triple M Global Zimbabwe. This Ponzi scheme, even on their online website, it presented itself as a mutual fund or a social financial network, which is based on crowdfunding. So people generally exchanged money with each other when you are part of this community. So what they highlighted was, if you've got spare money that you don't want to use maybe this month or the next 2 months, you can give it to someone who wants to urgently use it. And then they connect you to the person who urgently needs the money. So you can invest it. And then After a month, you can reclaim that money back with a 30% interest. And after registering, you are also rewarded. I'll talk about that briefly. So globally, it used the Bitcoin payment system, but in Zimbabwe, it also used EcoCash mobile money. And EcoCash mobile money is the largest mobile money service in the country. I think it's one of the success stories in Africa, probably next to M-Pesa in terms of its traction and popularity. I think recently Econet Wireless, which is the telecom company that operates this mobile money service, was saying it has now reached 14.9 million subscribers. And the majority of its subscribers are also subscribing to EcoCash. And this is almost the entire population. Why? Because Zimbabwe is, from the past census, about 15 million people in the country. Of course, it's also used by outsiders. So that speaks to how popular this mobile money service is. So this Ponzi scheme operated through this mobile money service. So people could be paid, and then they do the payments either through Bitcoin or through mobile money. That is how it operated. So there were a lot of interesting discourses around this mobile money in the presentations that I attended for some of the managers, the people that would sign up as managers online, and some of the referees that would also go to lure other people to join the community because it came with a reward. I'll talk about that shortly. So some of these discourses relates and resonate very fundamentally with some of the traditional, anthropology and sociology literature that we've been talking about. Maus, gift economy, Malinowski, and other, interesting discourses. And their argument was that MMM or Triple M unites the people. And I think you can see these are very small groups, of course, and some of the pictures that I could get, but some of the meetings that I attended could actually be full house. Venues bigger than this kind of space, where people come to listen to the managers to present on what the ideology of Triple M was about. So they foregrounded the idea that Triple M promotes financial freedom. Why? Because you are sort of removing exploitative formal financial institutions such as banks. You are literally lending to each other as a community, and then not being charged exorbitantly. And they also foregrounded the idea of how it promotes what they refer to as fair redistribution. So it can also be imagined actually as a share economy. I think there's a lot of literature around the share economy where people do share. So for me, what was particularly interesting in understanding this Ponzi scheme and how it operated was the context in which it manifested. And I think one important thing that I need to highlight is the idea of religion and spirituality within the Zimbabwean context. I think during this time, we were seeing a sort of a revolutionary popularity and growth of what we call prosperity gospel churches. And if you can look at the top picture there, at the far end, you will see a gentleman with a shirt that's written UFIC. That's a popular Zimbabwean Pentecostal church called United Family Church, which attracts thousands of people in some of their services. They actually fill up 50,000, 60,000 stadiums in some of their main events. And some of the pastors were actively encouraging church members to invest because that was one way in which you could actualize the so-called promises that, as a born-again Christian, you are entitled to health, wealth, and prosperity. And some of these Ponzi schemes were actually imagined and framed as important avenues for people to get rich and become successful. So religion and religious subjectivities and the way in which they were shaped within these specific churches also played an important role in how this Ponzi scheme gained traction and membership. in Zimbabwe, and I think that would also be pretty much the same in many other countries. I was just reading an example of this same Ponzi scheme in Nigeria, that one of the dominant church, the Redeemed Church in Nigeria, the pastors were actually also actively encouraging members to invest. So it's quite popular, a popular strategy, not only in Zimbabwe, but in many other African countries. And then the other thing that I think was also important was the pre-existing culture of mutual help, which I think Prof. Nyamunda was highlighting, that within an African cosmology, this idea of sharing, this idea of mutual support and help is something that is deeply embedded in an African way of life, an African way of being, especially in some of the societies. And as a result, that also played an important role in how this Ponzi scheme gained traction in Zimbabwe. And lastly, the protracted economic crisis and the loss of faith in financial institutions. People in Zimbabwe during this time were very much, pro what is called Islamic banking, where you just keep your money under the bed. Because you take it to the bank or leave it in the bank, the government, the economy, because of hyperinflation, policy inconsistencies will just tell you that your money is now a gold coin, like what recently happened. Or maybe your money is now RTGS, even if it was a US dollar. So people prefer to keep their money with them. So when this Ponzi scheme emerged, it actually became very attractive to many people. I've just looked around the statistics just to show how popular it was. In Nigeria, it started in 2015, and within a year, it had 2.4 million subscribers. In South Africa, it had 2.1 million active members in 2016, while in Zimbabwe, it had 1.8 million members. Of course, these statistics are probably not necessarily accurate, but it speaks to how popular this Ponzi scheme was. So how did it operate? How did it work in real life? So like I was saying, for one to be a member of this community, you had to register, and after registering, you had to offer help to other members who are in need of money. So you join. After joining, you offer the amount that you think you want to help with. It may be $100 US because it operated in US dollar. It may be 200. And this is the system. I took a picture. I remember also joining this as a way of trying to understand how it is. Coming from anthropology, you always believe participant observation is very, very interesting. So I was actually one of the people that were also affected by the collapse of this Ponzi scheme. But of course, I did not put in a lot of money. But I joined, trying to understand how it works. So if you are a new member, you join, and then your dashboard looks like this. You register, you offer to provide money. In this case, maybe 660. That's 3.1 USD, and then you wait to be paid by the next person, or to be paid to many people, depending on who is requested how much. In terms of the help that they wanted to receive. So upon registering, one would then get a 20% once-off bonus and then a 30% monthly interest. So if you put in 100 today, if you want to get it next month, then you get it as 130 plus the 20% bonus for registering. And then when you register, you're actually given what is called a unique referral link, which is very particular to you as a member. And you can use this referral link to invite friends and family to join. And each and every person that you invite into the community would get, you would get a 10% referral bonus. So that was something that was very interesting, which explains why, people would host, all these meetings, invite so many people, and then assist them to register and then use their links so that they could also get the the referral bonus. So if you convince a friend to register using your own link, and then that friend offers $100, you would be entitled to a $10 referral fee. If they put in $1,000, you get a $100 referral fee. So this is what happens when you enter into the dashboard. If you are providing help, this is what you do. You offer the amount of money that you want to give, and then on that extreme side, you wait to be paid. So the idea of waiting for me is fascinating, because theoretically and analytically is what got me fascinated to look at this idea of waiting, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. So that is an example of how people are paid. That's the extreme part of the dashboard. The last slide was showing the other side, where you are providing help and you're getting help. That's the other side. So you are paid by the people that are also requesting the money, and then you can later on claim it when you feel like you need to use it. So waiting is an important part of how this Ponzi scheme operates, because you join, and then after joining you offer help, and then you wait to be paid, right? In most cases, people would wait for some time. If they get paid, and even if the money accrues the 30% interest at the end of the month, they'll still wait for it to accumulate even more money, so that they could get as much as possible. So some of them would simply concentrate on getting many colleagues to register, and then get the 10% bonus. When they get that 10% bonus, they trade it to ensure that it gets the other 30%. So it was very fascinating, this idea of waiting, which I would try to highlight in a few minutes. So people will also wait to cash in, to be paid. They will wait also to cash out their money. So theoretically, I find Jen Dyer's work, and more particularly the idea of punctuated time, to be very interesting in understanding how this Ponzi scheme operated, and also in looking at issues of temporalities and socialities that are part of this scheme that I'm looking at here. So I'm particularly interested, not necessarily in the metrics or the algorithms of this Ponzi scheme, but I'm very much interested in the process of waiting, that is waiting to be paid, waiting to cash out your money, and how this waiting configure and reconfigure social relations among the participants, the managers, the referees, and other members of the community. I'm particularly also interested in the temporalities of the Ponzi scheme investments and the socialities that they engender. But I ask an interesting question with regards to, when this Ponzi scheme collapses, what else collapses, right? In terms of socialities, in terms of social relations. What else is lost apart from the material money, or even the symbolic money or the electronic money that is lost in this process? That is something that I'm particularly interested in. So when it comes to waiting, I think I can give two stories of two participants who I found to be interesting in this Ponzi scheme. One of them is a gentleman called Andrew. Andrew was a very loyal Pentecostal member of a popular Pentecostal church in Zimbabwe, which believed and propagated prosperity gospel. He had invested part of his money that he wanted to use for his wedding. So he had planned a wedding, and a friend in church encouraged him that, you can put this money, when you put this money in 2-3 months, all the other money that you wanted for the wedding would be ready. So he was convinced and then put in the money. Unfortunately, just before the wedding, I think it was close to a month before the wedding, that's when the Ponzi scheme collapsed. And when it collapsed, it also collapsed with his wedding. It also collapsed with his marriage. Because when he invested the money, he had not informed the prospective wife that this is what I'm doing. So the wife was preparing for the wedding, but Andrew knew that it was going to be extremely difficult for this wedding to go on. And that for me was very fascinating. The other participant, I call Amos, was a student at the country's biggest university, the University of Zimbabwe. And Amos had for 2 semesters used his tuition to invest in this Ponzi scheme. Initially, benefited significantly from the investments and even managed to pay the tuition fee for that semester and remained with some more money for upkeep. But he started living a very luxurious life on campus, buying all these gadgets, modern gadgets for his room. And when the money for the other semester came, he again put it through the investment, and unfortunately, the investment collapsed before he paid his semester's tuition. And that also came with a lot of things collapsing, from being in trouble, and, with the parents, the university, and other things. So, for me, the socialities embedded in this Ponzi scheme is what fascinated me, and I found the work of Jane Gaia to be very interesting, especially, like I said, the concept of punctuated time within these Ponzi schemes and how it shaped and mediated Ponzi scheme investments. So Jane Gaia argues that punctuated time relates to the gap between the distant future and the present. And punctuated time also involves waiting for a specific future event. And in this case, waiting to be paid, waiting to cash out your money, and other forms of waiting that were a key part of this particular Ponzi scheme. So borrowing from Gaia, I assert that the investors wait for a distant event in the near future, for instance, seems to be evacuated. I think the evacuation of the immediate future is an important and interesting part of Jane Gaia's idea. So apart from one having to wait, there are certain things that fill in that space of waiting, like what Gaia asks, for instance, what becomes near when the near fades from collective consciousness. And I argue, based on the findings in this work, that near is filled with socialities of uncertainty, precariousness, and perpetual waiting. What is interesting is that when this Ponzi scheme, and I'm almost done, when this Ponzi scheme collapsed and people received the news that their accounts had been frozen, a lot of people rushed to click the get help to try to cash out their money. Some of them didn't believe that it had collapsed. They just felt, this was just, people trying to sabotage the platform. So a lot of people rushed to get help. So how this Ponzi operated was, it is just like any other Ponzi schemes that you are paid on the basis of how many other people are willing to offer help. So there were a lot of people that were now demanding help, and very little, if any, who were offering help. So the system literally collapsed. But these people that had asked for help through the Get Help system were still waiting to be paid. They were still waiting that at one point probably we are going to get assisted. So this was very interesting for me, and then the argument that I try to make, of course, very tentatively for now, is that Ponzi schemes such as Triple M should be viewed as a space through which investors sought to reconfigure the future and foreshorten the distant future through these investments in Ponzi schemes. But like I emphasized as a way of concluding, that within the Zimbabwean economy, because of the protracted economic crisis, limited employment and livelihood opportunities, as well as the context, which was also marked by religiosity, prosperity, there was an inherent pressure for people to succeed in a very constraining economy, where people have access to so-called modern gadgets, but a very limited capacity for them to access these gadgets. So the context matters, especially in the dynamics and the form that these Ponzi schemes took within the Zimbabwean context. And spiritual subjectivities also played a significant role in how this particular Ponzi scheme gained traction in Zimbabwe. So thank you very much for listening.